You're listening to Football, Philosophy, and Rocket Science, a Cleveland Browns podcast, a show where a philosopher and a rocket scientist try to make sense of the Cleveland Browns. The Football, Philosophy, and Rocket Science podcast is a part of the Fanatical Elves podcast network, a part of the Fans First Sports Network. Here are your hosts, Elliot Kennel and Joel Cade.
Hi there. Thanks for joining us. I'm Elliot, and he's Joel.
Howdy.
Let's get into it. Joel, do you have something happy that you can start us off with? I have some unhappy things that I wanted to.
Well, let's try to get the happy stuff out. So today, the Cleveland Browns have tweeted out that 3 players got married over this break.
Okay.
So that's good news. Nobody
good.
got arrested. Nobody got put in jail.
Okay.
And we're set up for a long and happy life.
Okay.
And those
So who got
players
married?
are Tommy Togiai, Harrison Bryant, and hold on, I lost it. Juan Thornhill. Yeah.
Juan Thornhill. Okay.
Let me see if I can share the pictures for my buddies watching.
Okay.
There we
excellent.
go. Let's share that. There is the Tommy Togiai.
Okay.
Then we've got Harrison Bryant
Wow. Okay.
and Juan Thornhill.
Excellent. Okay. Well,
All
congratulations, fellas. Okay.
Not to
That's
sound too spacey and weird, but live long and prosper.
Okay.
Good luck in married life.
Okay. All right. Well, congratulations, gentlemen. Yeah, I hope that doesn't make them calm down too much, because football is a crazy game. So, bachelors are kind of crazy people, and we like that. We're afraid that marriage might make them too normal, but no, seriously, congratulations. It's wonderful news. Let's see. Do we have any other good news to share? I think we do have some good news. We do, about 2 famous Cleveland Browns, right? Coach Marty Schottenheimer and one of the greatest football players of all time, Clay Matthews, have both made it to the semifinals for the Hall of Fame. I don't know if I should complain in advance. We're going to assume that they're going to make it all the way to the Hall of Fame this time. They've been down this path before. I think there's a chronic difficulty about what exactly do you use as a criterion for selecting people for the Hall of Fame. And one of the problems that Cleveland Browns players have is we've never made it to the Super Bowl, never won the Super Bowl. We never even made it to the Super Bowl. And do we want to hold that to be the personal responsibility for Coach Schottenheimer and for Clay Matthews? Was their personal responsibility to get into the Hall of Fame into the Super Bowl? And if the team didn't make it, it must be their fault, and they are not going to be granted the ticket to make it to the Hall. Does that make sense?
I don't know, Elliot. I'll tell you this. Everybody loves a winner. And if you're on a team that wins, then you get the accolades. I don't think it's right, but it is what it is.
I don't know. Did Terrell Owens get a he at least made it to the Super Bowl. I don't know if he ever won the Super Bowl.
He's had a larger than life personality. See, that's the other thing you could do. If you come out and have a larger than life personality,
all the
it's
time,
still larger than life.
He was cut like 4 times, and people were always not sure whether they wanted him on the team because he was disruptive. I always favored him. I would always argue that, no, you don't want to cut a player like that. Keep him on the team. But I don't know that I thought that he would, translate to a Hall of Famer just because I didn't want to cut him. But I think it's a Hall of Stats sometimes.
Well, let me say this. When you
Who's
start
the best
voting for
player?
you start voting for the Hall of Fame, you're getting a lot of people from across the country to vote. So if you have people saying Arizona that have never heard of Clay Matthews because Clay Matthews was never in prime time, or if I'm not saying he wasn't, I'm just saying hypothetically here, if Clay Matthews never played in the playoffs, never been to the Super Bowl, never won a Super Bowl, it's a harder sell to sell those people in those remote areas that don't watch Cleveland football on a regular basis that this is a good player because they don't see him on national TV.
True that.
That's why the primetime games are important. That's why the Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night football games. That's why they're important. It gives your brand exposure. And you want that to be positive exposure because sadly, ESPN and the highlight reel has taken over what football, baseball, all this stuff really is.
That's true. So we're going to do it on the basis of highlight reel, but my opinion is nobody did it better. Nobody did it longer than Clay Matthews.
I 100% agree.
100%. But okay, so we're going to campaign for them as best we can. We just absolutely love both of them. Let's see. We have some disappointing news that we need to bring up is that Dawson Deaton was cut. The Browns usually don't cut players that were drafted. He was a late round draft pick. I think it was the 6th or maybe it was the 7th round that he was taken in. Not this year, but the year before.
Center, I believe, right?
Yeah, he's a center and he can also play guard. But I think the reason is that you'll recall that late in training camp last season, he had a knee injury, an ACL, and we're just getting all kinds of great reports that he's progressing nicely from an ACL injury. But if you stop to think about it, well, wait a minute. These days, ACL injuries, if they proceed nicely, they're pretty much ready to go in less than a year. If you have a good recovery from an ACL injury. So I think the Browns probably figured that, maybe the injury is not proceeding as well as it could be. And they feel that there's not a great likelihood that he's going to be taken by another team and that maybe they can sign him to the practice squad later on in training camp. And especially if he's not going to be 1,000% ready to participate in training camp and get into the exhibition games, he's probably not going to make the 53-man roster anyway. So maybe they clear a roster spot for somebody else and try to sign him to the practice squad.
If you're signing him at all. I mean, you're looking at center-wise right now. You're looking at Ethan Posick. You're still looking at Luke Whippler just drafted. You're looking at Harris. I can't think of his name.
Nick
Harris. I was going to say Nate, but I knew that wasn't right. Nick Harris and Dawson Deaton. Okay. So I don't think Deaton fits in the puzzle. I think the Browns knew that Deaton was kind of probably be we don't think this guy's going to work for us as to that's why they went and got Luke Whippler. I mean, particularly with Nick Harris and his injuries too. They're probably just hoping Luke Whippler comes in and asserts himself. And if that's the case, you still want to keep Nick Harris as he has game experience, stash him on the practice squad.
Yeah, we still have lots of guys that have trained as a center, at least as a secondary position. So I think the Browns are well stacked at center. So, okay. All right. Now we have news of the weird, do we not? We heard that there's a new Netflix series.
Oh yeah. Well, before we hit the Netflix series, let's go into the break. Okay, we'll come back from our break. We're going to take a quick break there, everybody. On the way back, we're going to talk about Netflix and maybe with some bonus content, but we'll see. All right, hang on.
Okay.
And we're back. Thanks for hanging on. Yes, Elliot, Netflix is coming out with their next season of Untold. And just for those of you out there who've not actually watched Netflix Untold, this is their attempt at allowing a first-person account of interesting sporting events that went on. This series actually did a really, really good episode, maybe it's even 2 episodes, over Manti Te'o and the girlfriend that did not exist. It was his perspective, what he went through, how he got caught into this catfish thing, how it progressed, some of the things he was thinking about, some of the social situations he was dealing with, how that actually impacted his NFL career, the things he had to overcome, how he would go into the locker room and people would make fun of him, and how he's had to fight through that whole situation when he was with San Diego, when he was with, now Los Angeles Chargers, when he was with New Orleans. So it's a really good in-depth kind of show. It's a very first-person show, but on August 8th, Netflix is going to announce The Untold with Johnny Football Manziel.
Oh, you've got to be kidding.
Johnny Football. Johnny Manziel.
Haven't we heard enough of this story? I mean, they should call this Retold.
I don't know. I got some other names for it. Let's listen to some not understanding people. But yeah, Johnny Football is going to get up and get to tell his story. And I don't know what actual event they're trying to get at. If they're trying to get at, him not succeeding in the NFL, I don't know. But let me read for you, Elliot, the promo off of Netflix.com. All right,
I got to admit that I am going to watch this.
Oh, I'm absolutely going to watch it. I'm waiting to see who he deflects all the blame onto. But let me read what Netflix is describing this as.
It was Joel Cade and Elliot Kennel that placed so much pressure on me I couldn't play quarterback.
That's right. He's going to call us out by
criticism.
Name. Well, he did. He did. He did give us some comments earlier in the series. I think it was episode 1 or episode 2 that he congratulated us on our starting our podcast. So maybe he's a friend of the show. We should give him kudos for being a friend of the show.
There you go.
Right. And here's what Netflix.com has to say. In 2012, the brightest star in all of sports was an undersized freshman quarterback, Johnny Manziel from unheralded Texas A&M, whose fervor on the field was rivaled only by his hard-playing ways off of it. Dubbed Johnny Football, the magnetic football player captured the nation's attention and initially relished his alter ego. Quote, "I wanted to be Johnny Football. Johnny Football never had a bad time," unquote, he says. But as the money rolled in, the scrutiny heightened, and Manziel rejected his newfound fame and suddenly lost his way. With astonishing candor, Manziel, along with his family, coaches, former best friend, and agent, details what happened behind the scenes as scandals piled up in the glare of paparazzi flashbulbs. He fumbled his shot at NFL success after the Cleveland Browns picked him in the first round of the NFL draft in 2014. By the way, that's Elliot's favorite draft, the 2014 draft.
Yes, it
but
is. Definitely.
Manziel went on to search for something even greater. All right, I'm calling horse crap on that.
Greater? Yeah, that who wrote that?
That's straight off the Netflix
okay,
promo.
Well, okay, they got to make a buck and sell that stuff. But
I think
who drafted Manziel anyway? I think
that was the homeless guy.
The homeless guy, the owner of the Cleveland Browns. At that time, Jimmy Haslam III was calling the shots, and the story goes that a homeless man asked him to draft Johnny Manziel, and Jimmy said, "Hey, that's a sign from the Almighty that I should, in fact, draft Johnny Manziel." Johnny Manziel was the son of an oil man. I'm the son of an oil man. Let's go for it. And I think people knew that there were alcohol problems, that there were
and drugs,
allegations of drug abuse, and then that these things maybe were not proven, but that there was a risk involved. Even before the draft, it was appreciated. But they decided rather than ding him for that and draft him, give him a 3rd round rating or something like that, they said, "No, let's go for it in the 1st round." And I think at some point there was a notion that Johnny Manziel might be taken 1st overall. There was talk about that.
That's probably just crazy draft. My favorite part of that draft was when Manziel showed up in clearly Dallas Cowboy colored suit, trying to get the Dallas Cowboys to draft him. I mean, I think Manziel was not secretive about where he wanted to play.
Oh, yeah. Well, good luck with that. I'm not sure that you can be that influential, but I do think that there was these things evolve over a period of time, but there was a point that it was rumored that the Browns had him rated first overall, and then Joe Banner was fired. This is not a fact, but this is a rumor. Okay, so I want to be clear about that. Joe Banner is a guy that I admire very much. I think he's a genius. He's an attorney. He's really a sharp guy, but under that administration, I think Manziel was rated very, very highly. And then I thought once he was gone, that Banner was gone, that I thought, okay, the advocacy for Manziel was gone, and that there would be some other quarterback that would be taken, either Jimmy Garoppolo or
wasn't Teddy
Carr.
Bridgewater? Wasn't Bridgewater in that
Bridgewater,
draft?
Bridgewater was in that draft also.
Okay.
And I think Carr and Jimmy Garoppolo were the guys that were thought to be the best guys, but nobody was actually thought to be worthy of top of the first round. Everybody thought, well, they're pretty good, but not superstars. Nobody was a superstar in that draft. So
wasn't Odell Beckham Jr. in that draft?
That sounds like it might. I don't know if
I'm pretty sure he was. Let me see. Let me pull it up. Clowney went overall number 1. Then the Rams got Greg Robinson. Then Blake Bortles. I thought there was a quarterback.
Oh, Blake Bortles. I forgot about Blake.
Right?
Yeah, that was kind of a reach, though. Nobody really believed that.
Yeah, that was I remember that day. Everybody's like, "What? What the?"
Blake
There was Sammy Watkins, Khalil Mack, Jake Matthews. Speaking of the Matthews clan, there.
Yeah, and take anybody named Matthews. I agree with that pick.
So then we had Eric Ebron, Taylor Lewan, and Odell Beckham Jr. at 12. Then Aaron Donald was 13. Well, Ryan Shazier was at 15.
Justin Gilbert was way up. Wasn't he like number 10 or something?
He was number 8. Justin Gilbert, number 8 to the Browns.
Yeah, okay.
And you had Anthony Barr. He's made some Pro Bowls. Zach Martin.
And where was Derek Carr taken? Wasn't he in the second round?
I'm thinking Carr was round 2. Carr was the 36th pick. The
36th, yeah.
4th pick. Joel Bitonio, who I'm sporting on the jersey, number 75, was picked right before Derek Carr.
Yeah, well, that's not a bad comparison. Those are very comparable stars, both very, very deserving of. They should have been both in the first round, obviously. But let's talk about Manziel. Let's talk about Manziel.
One more thing. That's the draft that the Panthers took Kelvin Benjamin. And a few Panthers fans out there, you'll know what I'm talking about. That's the Kelvin Benjamin draft. All right, anyway, go ahead. Johnny Manziel.
No, I think, Manziel, I think really did have a high level of ability. A lot of people want to use the fact that he failed miserably as proof that he had no ability. But no, I think the problem with Manziel is that he was not able to play football and to drink and drug at the same time. He was not Joe Namath. He was not Brett Favre.
Again, not Josh Gordon going out there high playing football.
He was not able to combine those two activities at the same time. But I believe that he did have enough mobility and enough ability to improvise in scrambling and throwing a football and making those kind of like Favre-like adjustments for quarterback improvisation, that he could have made it in the NFL if he had maybe a 2 or 3 year apprenticeship and actually learned how to play football at the NFL level.
Yeah, but isn't that Johnny Manziel's issue, right? Isn't that who he is? He's Johnny Football. He's this and that. I mean, I remember when the Browns drafted him.
That wasn't going to happen.
I wasn't real happy about the draft of Johnny Manziel, right? But I tried to talk myself into it as it went down. watched highlight reels. I remember a play that really made me think, okay, he could really play in the NFL. There's two of them. One, it was a bowl game, I believe. He was in the pocket. He stepped up in the pocket, almost got sacked, backed out of the pocket, and threw the ball down the field for a touchdown. I mean, I thought that's fantastic. He can adjust, will be great. Then the other play was a fumble.
Yeah, that play, the fumble,
right?
He tackled
ran 90 yards down the field and
made two tackles.
Yeah, I was like
twice, and then the guy fumbled, and the other team picked it up and ran, and he tackled that guy too.
He tackled that guy. I thought, okay,
if Manziel that guy can play safety in the NFL.
Yeah, if this guy can put in that kind of effort, we're going to be okay. Because
that's what I thought. That guy's an athlete. That's exactly what I thought. That was my favorite Manziel play of all time.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite Manziel. Problem is, he came in and he acted like a complete dope. I mean, he didn't practice. I mean, he probably practiced. He clearly didn't know his playbook. I can recall, not that I remember this, but Joe Thomas telling stories about he'd come into the huddle and Joe Thomas was calling the plays because Manziel didn't know the plays during that Buffalo game that he started.
He was well, was that in year 1 or year 2?
I tell you what, it won't really matter what year. I'm pretty sure he didn't know.
It did matter because he won games in year 2. He beat San Francisco.
In 2015, he was 2-4.
Yeah, he won 2 games. That's a lot. How many people won 2 games in that era, Joel?
I mean, he started
6. How many people? How many quarterbacks for the Cleveland Browns won more than 2 games?
Well, okay, in that era, we're talking Brian Hoyer.
It was not until Brian Hoyer that.
Well, Brian Hoyer was benched for Manziel. That's the whole. Oh, what's his name? The big guy that was the the guy making footballs to the sideline. Do this, do that. Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah. But all right, between Hoyer and then who was the next guy to win more than 2 games besides who was the next one that won 3 starts? It was a long time. It was a long time. It's probably Josh
57% 57% completion percentage.
Yeah, but the Browns were terrible. To win 2 starts for the Cleveland Browns in that era was not easy. You don't remember how bad the Browns were, and then they went.
Oh, I remember how bad the Browns were. I'm just saying, at this point, it wasn't his ability to play football that hurt him. It was his mental makeup that hurt him. He could have been an NFL quarterback. He would have to have learned a lot, right? He would have had to have learned how to stay in the pocket. A lot of people out of that air raid system have to learn how to stay in the pocket. He would have had to have learned how to read defenses. That air raid system is known for not having reading defenses, but reading wide receivers. He would have had to have learned a lot. The only quarterback I can think of that's actually successfully transitioned from air raid to NFL pro style is Patrick Mahomes. You could make the case for Baker Mayfield. I don't know. Has he successfully transitioned or not? But these are the kind of things Manziel would have had to have gone through. But he could have done it. I do believe he could have done it. I believe he could have had he wanted to work on it, had he put in the time, had he put in the effort, and had the Browns had their crap together enough to give him a consistent coach in a consistent environment.
Agree. Yeah. That was the thing, is he wanted to just wing it, and he was not that good. Nobody's that good. You can't wing it in the NFL and just make stuff up on the fly. Oh, I'll just go back and improvise, scramble, and I'm going to be Fran Tarkenton and just throw passes on the fly. No.
Yeah, those days are over.
Those days are over.
Those days are long.
Yeah,
I'm not even. Manziel is a wasted opportunity in life is what I see Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, so I will defend Manziel as an athlete and as a potential quarterback. I don't believe people say, "Oh, he was too small. He could never make it in the NFL." Well, okay.
Yeah, I'm not buying that either.
I'm not buying that. I don't buy that Drew Brees could never play quarterback in the NFL. Convince me of that, and then I'll tell you that Manziel did not have the physical capability. I don't know that Manziel was going to ever be, make the Hall of Fame or anything like that, or approach the level of success that he had at Texas A&M. But I absolutely believe that he could have started in the NFL if he'd have been trained to play freaking quarterback in the NFL. Rather than just wing it in the NFL, which is what the Browns allowed him to do. And I really fault the Browns ownership for letting him violate team rules left and right and really contributing to his demise. That's a clear case of codependency where the Browns just let him do whatever he wanted to. And
I think they saw him as a cash cow. I'm trying to look up Kyle Shanahan. What year did he leave the Browns? He was in 2014. So he was there for the 2014 season and left before the 2015 season. So he was coaching Manziel when Manziel went 0-2.
0-2, which
in
was
2014.
Where Brian Hoyer got fired for no reason.
Yeah, that season.
That was an atrocity. And
then 2015, I think Manziel ended up getting hurt. And then you had this benching. Then you had Billy Manziel out there in Las Vegas.
Yeah, no, 2014 he got hurt. In the second game, he got hurt. He was terrible. 2015, he had 2 wins. And he played well against Pittsburgh, even though he was high or whatever. But he still threw for 380 yards against the Steelers. He did well. But then his game deteriorated. And yeah, I think his brother Billy probably got him into trouble.
The money phone.
He was a bad influence on Johnny, and Johnny's game just deteriorated at that point. And
you would hope. I mean, if there's anything you could think of with this untold, you would hope to see Manziel come out and say, I made mistakes in my life. I didn't help myself. I did these things to myself. I mean, there were reports about his dad and his mom concerned that, like, if he got drafted to the NFL, he'd have money, and they were afraid he was going to die of overdoses from drugs and alcohol.
I do think that Manziel, my guess would be that Johnny will probably own up to those character flaws in his actions to a great extent. I don't know whether he'll own up enough to take action to correct him or not, to get into rehab or whatever it is he needs to do in order to try and free himself from these problems that, from where we sit, appear to be life-threatening illnesses. Drug addiction, as far as I know, is a life-threatening illness that it can result in your own death or killing somebody by the act of driving a car and being incapacitated. There's a lot of ways. They have a TV show called Stupid Ways to Die or whatever, and a lot of those involve drugs and alcohol and abuse. And I just pray for Johnny that he's able to find some way out from that. It's not easy. I know that.
Let me ask you this about Johnny Manziel.
Yes, sir.
Right. Now I just forgot what I was going to say. You said yes, sir, and you made me forget what I was going to say. Oh, yes, and it's back. So Johnny Manziel was on the very kind of cutting edge, right when ESPN started to really become a kind of like highlight reel network, right? You watch the shows to get the highlight reel plays so you can play those highlights ad nauseum while making your case. This person should be this. They get their pundits up there. Well, he could win the Heisman, except he doesn't have a Heisman moment. Like, we need that highlight reel.
Yes.
We can play nonstop, right? When Johnny Manziel was like the human highlight reel, because
Absolutely.
He would break away and he would do this stuff.
Yes.
Stuff that, like, I remember listening to interviews of Andrew Jones, who played baseball for the Atlanta Braves. And everybody asked him, why are you playing so far back? It's like, well, if I play far back and I run up and I dive and catch the ball, I can get on ESPN. But if I play up and catch the ball normally, I don't get on ESPN. And that's how you get paid. You get paid by being on ESPN. You get to the Hall of Fame by being on ESPN, right? So you got to have that highlight reel. So if you play out of position, then you run real fast and make the catch, then all of a sudden you've made this terrific play when really you were just out of position. But nobody cares if you're out of position. They just want the terrific catch. That's what, ESPN has become. That's what it's kind of done to some of these sports. But Johnny Manziel seems to have been created by this like highlight culture, right? I've got all these great highlights. He did this to Alabama. He did this to this. Of course, ESPN basically runs the SEC network. It is the SEC network. Literally, if you get on the SEC network, like ESPN owns and operates the SEC network. So you've got ESPN that's constantly like pimping the SEC nonstop, right? Because they make money. When the SEC does well, ESPN makes money. That's just what it is. So
Absolutely.
they're pimping the SEC like it's God's gift of football. And you got Johnny Manziel out there with highlights against the SEC. So there's their chance. They created this kind of personality of Johnny Manziel. Like it's like they created Johnny Football, and then Manziel just buys. I am Johnny Football, right? And then like you pump his head up. You pump a 19-year-old's head up so big. I don't blame him for going off the deep end. I don't know what if I was 19 and I had ESPN hyping me up as the greatest thing to ever play football. I don't know what I'd have done. I honestly don't know what to tell you.
Well, I don't know if it's partly that, but it's also his skill set. They talk about quarterbacks processing information very quickly. Well, that would be Manziel. He's able to react very quickly and create some kind of ad hoc new play that's not in the playbook immediately, and scramble or do something or throw underhand or do these kinds of lateral passes that are just invented on the spot, just like Brett Favre. He had that ability and created highlight reel plays in real time that normal quarterbacks just can't do that. So I wouldn't say that he was created by TV so much as he had that ability to make spontaneous.
Okay, well let me augment what I'm saying, just so I'm
all right.
clear.
Yeah, but you're wrong. I'm right.
He has the ability to make the highlights, but what changed?
It magnified by TV.
TV has blown that highlight reel up to the point where like the only reason you watch the football game is to watch the highlights, right? So the only reason you're doing this stuff is to see the highlight. Come watch Johnny Manziel. He's the human highlight reel, right? It magnifies and it feeds your ego. Like I can make all these highlights. I'm so great. And then you pump someone's head up like that, particularly a 19-year-old. You're waiting for the explosion. Is anybody surprised that he has this meltdown?
Well, I don't know that it's. I think he had that personality. Listening to his dad describe the way he played golf, he was the same way on the golf course. I mean, he was just a very volatile personality. But I think you can have equal success if you were the kind of like Tom Brady leader quarterback who masters the position and leads the team down the field with pinpoint passing and has equivalent success, but maybe does not have the scrambling ability and does not have the spontaneous ability to create unique plays. I don't think it's just not the same. It's just not.
Well, I want to agree
same
with you. I want to highlight one thing on that dynamic. Tom Brady was like the 199th pick in the draft because nobody thought he was going to do anything.
Boring,
right? So he had to show up, work his rear end off, figure it all out, and make it in the NFL. Johnny Manziel arrived in the NFL. It's not like he had to work his way there. When he arrived, it was like Johnny Manziel has just showed up and he is going to wreck this league. It was a different mentality, right? Nobody cared who Tom Brady was. But if Johnny Manziel showed up, you knew that football divinity had arrived, right? So Manziel's playing under a whole different set of circumstances than Tom Brady is. Brady has the time to work his butt off, learn with a lot of patience. Manziel's expected to show up, get in, and beat the league up.
Yeah, well, it's partly personality. It's it's showmanship, show business, and
show business. That I guess that's a good way of saying this.
It's not a results-oriented business because Brady, had great results at Michigan, and people. Well, the perfect example is who did he compete with? Drew Henson was a much more dynamic quarterback at Michigan, didn't have the same results. People pointed, some of the smart guys pointed out that Drew Henson was not. The team did not have the same success with Drew Henson as they did with Tom Brady.
Wasn't
Drew
Brian
Henson
Griese
was the guy that went to the Dallas Cowboys, huh?
Wasn't Brian Griese in that situation in Michigan too?
Not at the same time, I don't think.
I thought Griese was there at the same time Brady was. And Griese would come in. See, I think Brady's thing at Michigan was this. Griese would come in, Michigan would struggle. Brady would come in at the end of the game and basically bring the team back and win. And then every time they'd start him, and then Griese would become the starter again. They'd go through this same little cycle. So he never ended up truly being a starter at Michigan, which is why he never arrived at the NFL. That he's pick 199. Now we're getting into Tom Brady.
He won the bowl game for Michigan as a senior. And Drew Henson, I believe, was a higher draft pick for the Dallas Cowboys because he could run fast and make up plays and scramble and do all this exciting stuff. So
you're probably right. Anyway. I think you're right. It is Drew Henson. I thought Brian Griese was in that situation. I'm looking this up.
I think he's older than that, but Drew Henson and Tom Brady were rivals, and the consensus view was that Drew Henson was the exciting guy with the NFL potential. Tom Brady was the boring guy who just won football games at college, but we knew that wasn't going to carry over into the NFL.
Griese was a teammate of Brady's. So you had Henson, Griese, and Brady all there.
Wow.
And Brady was the one that everybody thought, well, this guy's just garbage. But he was the one winning all the football games for him.
Yeah, well, who cares about winning?
When you have potential, you got to put the potential on the field, not the guy who actually wins the games. And Brady came to the NFL and just kept winning football games. That's why when I always hear people do scouting reports and they're like, this guy could run this. I like to get back to the movie Moneyball, but can he play football? That's the question. Can he play football?
Yeah,
anyway, I think
they had Brian Griese. Okay, his senior year was 1997.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, when was Drew Henson? Drew Henson was 2000. Okay, so and Tom Brady was 1999.
So yeah, he overlapped both Griese and Henson.
Yeah, so he overlapped. Well, he was in the middle. Brady was actually in the middle. Henson got more. They tried to give him the starting job over Brady, and Brady sort of fought him off in his senior year. Yeah.
All right. Well, Elliot, I think we're up against it. We're at minute 38 here. So.
All right. We had a good show. It was a fun show. So is Johnny Manziel going to make the NFL Hall of Fame?
Let's hope not. I don't think he has the stats. He may have the highlight reels, but I don't think he has the
famous. Stats. I don't know what your problem is. Oh, well.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Tune in next week when we will be 7 days closer to camp starting and may have some actual Browns news. All right. Thanks for listening.
We'll cover offenses around the division next week.
Thank you for listening to Football, Philosophy, and Rocket Science, a Cleveland Browns podcast. Please like, subscribe, and tell all your friends to give a listen. You can follow Joel on Twitter at The Left Guard and Elliot at The Village Elliot.